In the peaceful suburban streets of Willow Heights, Oregon, one mother's fight for justice would soon shake the very foundation of the community. Melissa Carter, a single mother, had always done her best to protect her son, Liam, a 10-year-old boy with epilepsy. But when the ruthless HOA president, Karen Whitmore, targeted Liam for behavior she couldn't understand, it sparked a chain of events no one could have predicted. This is a story of courage, community, and standing up against injustice. Stay tuned to witness a battle for respect that would change everything. In the quiet suburban neighborhood of Willow Heights, Oregon, life usually followed a peaceful rhythm. But for Melissa Carter, a single mother to her 10-year-old son, Liam, that rhythm was constantly interrupted by the weight of an invisible struggle. Liam had epilepsy, a condition that, despite its prevalence, was often misunderstood. That evening, as Melissa pulled into the driveway after a long day, she wasn't expecting the storm that was about to hit. Liam, still groggy from his speech therapy session, was struggling with the aftermath of his treatment. His body was tense, his movements erratic. Melissa was already worrying about his well-being when she noticed a familiar figure in the distance. Karen Whitmore, the notorious president of their homeowners association, HOA. Karen was standing in their driveway, clipboard in hand, already ready to unleash the first salvo. Melissa didn't have the energy to deal with another HOA complaint. Karen had always been a stickler for aesthetic order. No brightly colored lawns, no untidy hedges, no lawn ornaments of any kind. And now, as if summoned by the mere presence of Melissa and Liam, Karen was there again. Without a word of greeting, Karen pointed a judgmental finger at Liam, who was visibly exhausted from his therapy session. "That boy," Karen sneered. "He's been making the neighborhood uncomfortable, twisting and collapsing in front of Lot 12. It's disruptive, and frankly, it's performative behavior." Melissa froze. Her heart raced, but she forced herself to stay calm. "Karen, Liam has epilepsy," she said, keeping her voice steady, though her emotions were threatening to explode. "What you're seeing is a medical condition. He's not performing anything. He's struggling." Karen waved her hand dismissively. "We can't excuse every outburst with a condition. This is a neighborhood, not a circus. You need to control your child." It wasn't just the words that stung. It was the complete lack of compassion, the ignorance, and the cruelty behind them. Melissa felt a wave of protectiveness overtake her, but she didn't have time to respond before Liam began to twitch uncontrollably. The signs of an impending seizure were unmistakable. Melissa rushed to hold her son, guiding him toward the porch. "Liam, it's okay. You're safe, honey," she whispered, her voice trembling with panic. But Karen wasn't done. "I'm issuing a fine for public disturbance," Karen declared coldly, as if nothing had just happened. "You'll receive a notice." "You can't just let your child make a scene like that." Melissa felt her blood boil. How could Karen of all people be so heartless? But the damage had already been done. Liam collapsed in her arms, his body trembling as his seizure took over. She quickly rushed him to the hospital, praying silently that her son would be okay. That night, while Liam rested in the hospital, Melissa found a letter on their doorstep. The HOA had issued a $500 fine for public disturbance. She could hardly believe it. After everything her son had just gone through, this was the response from Karen, the person who had made her life so miserable. Fury rose in Melissa's chest. She couldn't let this go. She needed answers. She needed to understand why Karen, someone who held so much power over their lives, had to be so malicious. The next day, after a sleepless night, Melissa began her investigation into Karen's past. What she discovered made her blood run cold. Karen Whitmore wasn't just an overzealous HOA president. She was an abuser. Over the years, Several families with children who had disabilities or neurodiverse conditions had been harassed by Karen and her inner circle. A neighbor's autistic daughter had been fined for humming too loudly while waiting for the bus. Another family had been threatened with fines because their child's therapy dog was a visual liability. Melissa's hands trembled as she pieced together the evidence copies of HOA letters, videos of Karen's previous outbursts, and medical documentation from other families. It was clear Karen was abusing her power, with her husband, Ryan, by her side. Melissa decided to take action. Together, they compiled everything into a coherent timeline, which they then shared with the Epilepsy Foundation. The organization not only offered legal support, but they also helped to amplify Melissa's message through media channels. It wasn't long before more families came forward with their own experiences. At the next HOA meeting, Melissa knew things had to change. She had to be brave. She had to expose Karen for who she truly was. She wasn't just a bad neighbor, she was a bully, a tyrant who needed to be held accountable. Karen strode into the meeting with her usual air of superiority. She didn't even notice the local journalist sitting in the back, or the Epilepsy Foundation representative who had quietly joined the meeting. She was too busy with her clipboard, too busy readying herself to fight back. But Melissa was ready. She stood up and played a chilling video of Liam, suffering through one of his seizures. The video continued, capturing the exact moment when Karen had called it fake. The room fell silent. People shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Then came the testimonies. A father of a daughter who was a violinist, whose daughter had been fined for auditory intrusion. A teenager who had been bullied relentlessly for having seizures, who eventually dropped out of school due to the trauma. And Emily, a soft-spoken neighbor, who recounted how her autistic daughter had been threatened with an HOA citation for repetitive hand-flapping. The weight of the evidence was undeniable. Under the pressure of the overwhelming support from the community, the HOA board voted to remove Karen from her position immediately. The fines were rescinded, and the community began to breathe again. But Melissa knew that wasn't enough. Karen needed to be forced to reckon with the damage she had caused. Denise Caldwell, the newly elected HOA president, announced that Karen would be required to undergo a 6-hour certified epilepsy training course. The training would be filmed, and the families that had been harmed would be present. Karen attended reluctantly. She sat through the training with a stiff posture, refusing to show any emotion as real footage of seizures played. She didn't cry, she didn't speak, but she stayed. The segment aired on local news not as a takedown of Karen, but as a story of change. Melissa didn't know if Karen had learned anything, but for the first time, the hate mail stopped. The harassment ended. The next step was a new HOA charter, a draft for inclusion, diversity, and protection for disabled residents. Melissa helped write it. As the charter passed, the neighborhood's dynamics began to change. When Liam had a seizure at the park, no one stared. A neighbor brought him water, another called the time. The community knew what to do. They were no longer bystanders, they were allies. One Sunday, Denise came to visit Melissa and Ryan with the new charter. As she handed it over, she smiled softly. "This is just the beginning," she said, "but it's a start." Liam's smile, though small, was a testament to how far they had come. He still had his struggles, still had his seizures, but now he had something more important, a community that understood and supported him. As they sat together that evening, watching the sunset over Willow Heights, Melissa realized that the silence had been broken, and in its place, there was justice. Slow but sure, it had arrived.